You ever notice how some kids grew up with parents who checked every grade online, while others were told, be home before dark? Same country, same decade, completely different childhood. Why do so many adults today say, my Gen X parents loved me, but they weren't really involved? Here's the uncomfortable part. They weren't absent. They were raised to survive alone. Picture this. It's 1996. You're 11, school bus drops you off. You let yourself into the house with a key on a shoelace around your neck. The kitchen is quiet. You make boxed mac and cheese, sit cross-legged on the carpet, TV humming in the background. No one asking how your day felt. Just space. Now imagine another kid across town. Their parent is reviewing homework at the dining table, correcting spelling, checking math steps, asking follow-up questions. Two homes, two nervous systems forming. And this might surprise you. Gen X parents didn't invent hands-off parenting. They inherited it. Most of them were latchkey kids in the 70s and 80s. Divorce rates rising, both parents working, corporate layoffs on the news. Independence wasn't a parenting philosophy, it was logistics. So their brains adapted early. When you adapt to being alone at 8 years old, your nervous system learns something powerful. I can handle it. But here's the part no one talks about. When I can handle it becomes your identity. You expect other people to handle it too, including your kids. Think about a Saturday morning soccer game. Other parents pacing the sidelines, shouting instructions. Focus. Watch the ball. Don't mess up. The Gen X parent leaning against the fence, arms folded, quiet. If you fall, they don't rush. They watch you get up. Not because they don't care, because they believe you're capable. And this is where it gets interesting. Psychologically, Gen X grew up in high uncertainty environments. Economic recessions, Cold War tension, corporate downsizing, promises of stability that didn't always hold. When unpredictability is normal, your cortisol baseline shifts. You become less reactive to small stressors. So when their child panics over a failed test or a friendship drama, their instinct isn't to micromanage the emotion, it's to normalize it. You'll be fine. For some kids, that builds resilience. For others, it builds quiet self-containment. Picture Thanksgiving dinner. Loud debate across the table. An uncle ranting about politics. A cousin getting emotional. The Gen X parent doesn't shut it down immediately. They let the tension breathe. They assume you can navigate discomfort. Because they had to. Stay with me. There's also a dopamine story here. Modern parenting often runs on constant feedback loops. School apps, activity schedules, curated milestones. Dopamine from involvement. Gen X parenting. Dopamine from competence. From watching your kids solve something without help. From seeing them figure out the bike chain, the math problem, the social conflict. They weren't chasing closeness through control. They were chasing strength through distance. But strength has layers. Fast forward to adulthood. You're in a loud Friday night restaurant with friends. Everyone venting dramatically about work. You listen. You offer one grounded sentence. You don't spiral. You're steady. You've always been steady. But sometimes you don't know how to ask for comfort because asking feels unfamiliar. That's the paradox of hands-off parenting. It can create incredibly capable adults and incredibly self-reliant ones. And this might surprise you. Research on autonomy supportive parenting shows that when children are trusted with responsibility, their intrinsic motivation increases. They rely less on external validation. Gen X parents intuitively leaned into autonomy. But autonomy without consistent emotional mirroring can feel like emotional distance. So you grow up strong, independent, resourceful, and occasionally wondering why vulnerability feels awkward. This is the identity shift. What looked like detachment might have been trust. What felt like neglect might have been confidence in your resilience. What seemed like indifference might have been belief in your competence. Gen X parents weren't trying to be hands off. They were trying not to suffocate. They knew what it felt like to be alone, and they assumed space was a gift. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it was heavy. The real question isn't whether Gen X parents were too distant. It's this: did their distance teach you strength? Or did it teach you that you're on your own? Maybe both. And maybe that's the real legacy of Gen X parenting. Not cold, not careless, just quietly convinced that you could survive without constant applause. Because that's exactly how they learned to survive.